At a lonely, empty place to rest in the desert, a little girl sat tied up in the back of an old pickup truck. Dirt on her face, scared feelings in her eyes, her tiny wrist tied so tight she couldn't even lift her hands. Many travelers walked past her without seeing a thing. Not one person knew about the danger, sitting right in front of them. Her person who took her stood only a few feet away, acting like everything was normal. She didn't yell for help, she couldn't. The man who took her had told her to never make a sound, but she had one chance left. One tiny signal no person would ever see. She tapped her heel once, twice against the metal truck bed, a sound softer than a heartbeat, too quiet for people, too small to see. And somehow, the 14 police dogs heard it. Their ears went up, their bodies got stiff. Then, without a single command, they jumped into action, running straight toward her. Something was very wrong and only the dogs knew it. What happened next would show a secret that shook the whole country. Before we jump in, tell us where your name and where you're watching from in the comments. We might give you a shout out on our next video, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow we've saved something extra special for you. The hot Arizona sun beat down on Interstate 10, turning the rest stop into a furnace. Families pulled in for bathroom breaks, truckers grabbed coffee, and people filled their gas tanks before continuing their trips across the empty desert. It was just another busy afternoon at the Buckeye Rest area, located halfway between Phoenix and the California border. Nobody paid attention to the beat-up Ford pickup parked in the far corner near the dog walking area. Nobody except the dogs. It started with one German Shepherd named Luna. Officer Christine Parker, a K-9 handler with the Arizona Highway Patrol, was letting Luna stretch her legs after a long shift. They'd been training all morning at the police academy in Phoenix and were heading back to their station in Tucson. Luna had been walking calmly beside Christine, sniffing the desert plants and doing her business. But then something changed. Luna's head snapped to attention, her ears pointing forward like radar dishes. Her whole body went rigid. "Luna? What is it, girl?" Christine asked, following the dog's fixed stare toward the old pickup truck. Before Christine could stop her, Luna bolted. Not a casual run, but a full sprint, her training forgotten, her leash ripping from Christine's hand. Within seconds, 12 other police dogs from different agencies, all taking breaks at the rest stop, all went crazy. A bloodhound named Max pulled his handler, Officer Lisa Martinez from Texas, across the parking lot. A Belgian Malinois named Storm dragged Officer Victoria Hayes from New Mexico toward the same truck. A Labrador named Bella broke free from Officer Nicole Bennett of the California Highway Patrol. One by one, 14 police dogs, all highly trained, all from different states, all supposed to be on their best behavior, converged on that old Ford pickup. Their handlers ran after them, shouting commands that went completely ignored. "Max, heel, Max!" Officer Martinez yelled, but her bloodhound kept running. "Storm, come! That's an order!" Officer Hayes called out, but Storm didn't even slow down. The dogs surrounded the truck, barking, whining, scratching at the tailgate. Some jumped up trying to get into the truck bed. Others paced in tight circles, their training as search and rescue dogs, drug detection dogs, and tracking dogs all screaming at them that something was desperately wrong. Subscribe now before you miss what the dogs discovered. This will blow your mind. That's when Christine Parker first saw her. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, sitting in the truck bed partially hidden behind some boxes and a blue tarp. The child wasn't moving. Her hands appeared to be behind her back. Her eyes were wide with fear. "Oh my God," Christine whispered, immediately reaching for her radio. "This is Unit 47 to dispatch. I need backup at the Buckeye Rest area immediately. Possible child abduction in progress. Repeat, possible child abduction." The other handlers had now caught up to their dogs and were also seeing what had made the animals react so strongly. Officer Martinez, the most senior of the handlers, took charge. "Everyone stay calm. Victoria, Nicole, circle around to the other side. Christine, stay with me. The rest of you, secure the area and watch for the vehicle's owner." Inside the rest stop building, A man in his mid-50s with gray hair and a dirty t-shirt stood at the sink washing his hands. His name was Frank Morrison, and he was on day 3 of a cross-country drive that had nothing to do with tourism and everything to do with a crime that would soon make national headlines. Frank had been watching through the window. He'd seen the dogs gather around his truck. He'd seen the handlers radioing for backup. His heart started pounding. This wasn't supposed to happen. He'd been so careful. For a split second, Frank considered running. But where would he go? They'd already seen his truck, probably already had his license plate. Instead, he took a deep breath, put on his most innocent expression, and walked outside. "Excuse me, officers," he called out, his voice friendly and confused. "Is there a problem with my truck?" The handlers immediately noticed him, their hands moving to their weapons. "Sir, I need you to stop right there and put your hands where I can see them," Officer Martinez commanded, her voice firm but controlled. Frank stopped, raising his hands slightly. "Of course, officer. I'm not trying to cause any trouble. That's my truck. Is something wrong?" "Sir, is there a child in your vehicle?" Christine asked, positioning herself between Frank and the truck. "A child?" "No, no children. Just me traveling alone." "Why would you think?" "Because there's a little girl tied up in the back of your truck," Officer Hayes interrupted, her hand now on her weapon. "And you're going to explain why. Right now." Frank's face changed. The friendly confusion disappeared, replaced by cold calculation. "That's my granddaughter. She's been having behavioral problems, and I'm taking her to her mother in California. She has a tendency to run off, so I had to restrain her for her own safety." "Her own safety?" Christine repeated, not believing a word. "Your granddaughter is tied up in the back of a truck in 95-degree heat. Tell me in the comments, would you have believed his excuse?" By now, more police were arriving. The first backup units screeched into the parking lot, followed by an ambulance. Officer Martinez made a decision. "Sir, I'm going to need to see your identification and proof of guardianship for that child. And we're going to need to speak with her separately. I don't have to show you anything without a lawyer." Frank shot back, his fake friendliness completely gone now. "That's my granddaughter, and you have no right." "Actually, we have every right," a new voice interrupted. Detective Patricia Warren from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office had just arrived. She was a 20-year veteran who specialized in crimes against children. When there's a reasonable suspicion of child endangerment, we don't need permission to check on the welfare of a minor. "Step away from the truck, sir. Now." Frank looked around. He was surrounded by at least a dozen officers, all with their hands on their weapons. The 14 police dogs were still barking at his truck, their training and instincts telling them something the humans were just beginning to understand. He had no options left. "Fine," Frank muttered, stepping back. "But my lawyer is going to hear about this harassment." Christine and 2 other officers approached the truck carefully. Luna stayed right by Christine's side, still whining and pawing at the tailgate. "Sweetie?" Christine called gently to the girl. "My name is Officer Parker. You're safe now. Can you talk to me?" The little girl didn't respond. Her eyes darted from the officers to Frank and back again. She was terrified. Officer Hayes reached over and lowered the tailgate. Now they could see the full picture. The girl's wrists were bound together with zip ties. Her ankles were also tied. There was duct tape residue on her cheeks, where tape had recently been removed from her mouth. She had bruises on her arms. "Oh, sweetie," Christine whispered, her voice cracking. She climbed carefully into the truck bed, moving slowly so as not to frighten the child further. "It's okay now. You're safe. Can you tell me your name?" The little girl's lips moved but no sound came out. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Maya. Maya. That's a beautiful name," Christine said gently, pulling out a knife to cut the zip ties. "Maya, I'm going to cut these ties off you, okay? It might feel strange, but it won't hurt." As the zip ties fell away, Maya's hands came forward. Her wrists were red and swollen from where the plastic had cut into her skin. She'd been tied up for a very long time. The paramedics rushed forward with blankets and water. Detective Warren climbed into the truck bed on the other side. "Maya, can you tell me who that man is?" she asked softly, pointing to Frank. "The one standing over there?" Maya's whole body started shaking. He said he was taking me home. But he's not. He's not taking me home. Do you know him, sweetie?" "No," Maya whispered. "I never saw him before." Subscribe if you want justice for Maya. You won't believe what happens next. Officer Martinez immediately moved to arrest Frank Morrison. "Sir, you're under arrest for kidnapping and child endangerment. You have the right to remain silent." "This is ridiculous," Frank shouted as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "She's confused. She's my granddaughter. This is a mistake." But it wasn't a mistake. And as detectives started to dig into Frank Morrison's background and Maya's story began to unfold, they would discover something far worse than a simple kidnapping. Maya Torres, age 8, had been reported missing from her home in San Antonio, Texas, 6 days earlier. Her mother, Angela Torres, had dropped her off at school on Monday morning. Maya never came home. Security cameras at the school showed Maya getting into a gray sedan in the parking lot after school. The driver was a man matching Frank Morrison's description. But how had he known where to find her? How had he convinced her to get into his car? And most chilling of all, was Maya his only victim? Detective Warren sat with Maya in the air-conditioned rest stop building while other officers processed the scene. The 14 police dogs had finally calmed down, though several still kept watch on the truck, as if making sure their rescued child stayed safe. "Maya, you were very brave." "Detective," Warren said gently. "Can you tell me what happened? How did you end up in that truck?" Maya took a sip of water, her hands still shaking. "I was waiting for my mom after school. There's a place where the parents pick us up. But Mom was late. She's always a little late because she works at the hospital and sometimes can't leave on time." Detective Warren nodded encouragingly. "That man," Maya continued, pointing toward where Frank was now sitting in a police car. "He came up to me and said Mom sent him. He said she was in an accident and was at the hospital. He said I needed to come quick." "And you believed him?" Detective Warren asked gently, not judging. "He knew my name," Maya said, tears starting to fall. "He said, 'Maya, your mom Angela was in a car accident.' How did he know my name and my mom's name if she didn't send him?" It was a good question. A terrifying question. Detective Warren made a note to find out exactly how Frank Morrison had gathered information about this child and her family. "What happened then, sweetie?" "I got in his car. I thought we were going to the hospital. But he didn't drive to the hospital. He drove the other way. And when I said, 'This isn't the right way,' he told me to be quiet. Then he pulled over on an empty street, and he put tape on my mouth and tied my hands." Maya's voice broke. "I tried to scream but I couldn't. I tried to fight but he was too strong." Christine had been listening from the doorway, Luna sitting quietly at her feet. The German Shepherd seemed to sense that Maya needed calm right now, not more barking and excitement. "Maya?" Christine asked gently, "When we found you, you were tapping your heel against the truck. Did you know the dogs would hear it?" Maya's eyes widened. "You heard that?" "I didn't know if anyone would. He told me if I made any noise, he'd hurt my mom, so I couldn't yell or cry. But I remembered something from school." "What did you remember?" Detective Warren asked. "Our teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, she taught us about how dogs can hear sounds people can't. Like whistles that are too high for people but dogs hear them perfect. So I thought, maybe, if I made a little sound, too quiet for him to hear, maybe a dog would hear it." Christine felt tears in her eyes. This 8-year-old child, terrified and tied up, had remembered a science lesson and used it to save her own life. "You're so smart, Maya," Christine said. "You're so incredibly smart and brave." Comment, brave, if Maya's story touches your heart. As more details emerged, the full horror of Frank Morrison's crimes came to light. He wasn't Maya's grandfather. He had no relation to her at all. Frank Morrison was a registered offender with a history that made every officer involved in the case feel sick. He had been released from prison in Nevada 3 years earlier after serving time for crimes against children. He was supposed to be on a registry, supposed to be monitored, but he'd slipped through the cracks. Detective Warren contacted the San Antonio Police Department and spoke with Detective Carlos Rivera, who had been leading the investigation into Maya's disappearance. "We thought she'd been taken by someone she knew," Detective Rivera said over the phone. "The way she got into the car so willingly, we figured it was a family member or family friend. How the hell did this guy know so much about her?" The answer was chilling. Frank Morrison had been stalking Maya and her family for weeks. He'd followed Angela Torres to work, learning her schedule. He'd watched Maya's school, noting the pickup routine. He'd even gone through their trash at night, finding discarded mail with their names and address. He'd built a complete profile of this family, learning everything he needed to know to convincingly pose as someone Angela had sent. In Frank's truck, police found a notebook filled with information about Maya. Her school schedule, her mother's work hours, her route walking home on the days when the weather was nice. There were photographs taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. There was a map with their apartment marked. But most disturbing of all, there was a list. 17 names. 17 children from different states, different cities. Maya was number 17. Detectives immediately started investigating the other 16 names on the list. Were they all victims? Were there children still missing that could be connected to Frank Morrison? The investigation expanded rapidly, involving FBI agents and police departments from 6 different states. As this investigation unfolded, Maya was reunited with her mother. Angela Torres had driven through the night from San Antonio to the Phoenix police station where Maya was being kept safe. The reunion was captured by news cameras and would later be shown around the country, highlighting both the horror of child abduction and the miracle of Maya's rescue. Angela Torres couldn't speak for several minutes, just holding her daughter and crying. When she finally found words, she looked at the 14 K9 handlers who had gathered at the station. "Thank you," Angela said simply. "Thank you for listening to your dogs. Thank you for not walking past like everyone else did. You gave me back my daughter." Christine Parker, standing with Luna by her side, spoke for all the handlers. "We didn't save Maya. The dogs did. They knew something was wrong when all of us humans missed it. They heard a signal too quiet for human ears and they responded. These dogs are heroes. Would you trust a dog's instincts over your own judgment? Tell me in the comments." The story of Maya's rescue went national. News outlets picked up the story of 14 police dogs from different agencies all responding to a child's quiet distress signal. Animal behavior experts were brought on TV to explain how dogs' hearing is far superior to humans, how they can detect sounds at frequencies we cannot perceive. Dr. Margaret Foster, a veterinary specialist in canine behavior, explained it on a national news program. Dogs can hear sounds at frequencies between 40 Hz and 60,000 Hz. Humans can only hear between 20 Hz and 20,000 Hz. That means there's a whole range of sounds that exist in the world that we're completely deaf to, but dogs hear clearly. When Maya tapped her heel against that metal truck bed, she created a high-frequency sound that human ears simply couldn't detect. But to those 14 dogs, it was like an alarm going off. The interviewer asked, "But why did all 14 dogs react? They were from different agencies, different training programs. How did they all know it meant danger?" Dr. Foster smiled. "Because dogs are also incredibly good at reading distress signals. That tapping wasn't just sound, it was a pattern, a rhythm that indicated fear and stress. Combined with whatever scent markers Maya was putting off, fear, sweat, adrenaline, the dog's brains put together the pieces. Danger, child, help needed. And they responded the way they're trained to respond, by alerting their handlers and attempting to help. Luna became a celebrity. Her photo appeared in newspapers across the country. Christine received hundreds of letters thanking her and Luna for saving Maya. Many included donations to support K9 training programs. But Christine insisted on sharing the credit. Luna wasn't alone, she told reporters. 14 dogs responded. Max, Storm, Bella, Duke, Rocky, Zeus, Athena, Apollo, Rex, Ranger, Ace, Bear, and Shadow, all of them played a part. All of them are heroes. The other handlers agreed. They'd all been at the right place at the right time, and their dogs had done what dogs do best: protect the vulnerable and detect danger that humans miss. Frank Morrison was charged with kidnapping across state lines, child endangerment, and multiple counts related to the evidence found in his truck and his background. As detectives investigated the 17 names in his notebook, they discovered that 3 other children on his list had gone missing in recent months from different states. Subscribe to never miss stories of heroes, both human and animal, who save lives. Maya's testimony, given in a closed courtroom with special accommodations for her age, was crucial to the prosecution. She described in heartbreaking detail how Frank had grabbed her from school, how he'd driven for days, stopping only at remote rest areas, keeping her tied up and silent. She described how he'd warned her that if she made any sound, he'd go back and hurt her mother. She explained how she'd remembered the lesson about dogs hearing and had waited for a moment when she saw dogs nearby to tap her heel. "I couldn't tap loud," Maya explained to the jury. "He would hear loud. So I tapped soft. Just 2 taps, over and over, hoping a dog would hear." "And were you scared?" the prosecutor asked gently. "So scared," Maya whispered. "But I remembered my teacher said we should never give up. We should always try to be safe. So I tried." There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Frank Morrison's defense attorney tried to argue that his client had mental health issues, that he needed treatment, not prison. But the evidence was overwhelming. The notebook with 17 children's names, the photographs, the history, the clear planning and premeditation. After a trial that lasted 2 weeks, the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Frank Morrison was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. As he was led away in chains, he showed no emotion, no remorse. But Maya, sitting in the gallery next to her mother and surrounded by all 14 K9 handlers and their dogs, smiled for the first time in weeks. 6 months after the rescue, a special ceremony was held in Phoenix. The Arizona governor presented medals of honor to all 14 K9 teams. Luna, Max, Storm, Bella, Duke, Rocky, Zeus, Athena, Apollo, Rex, Ranger, Ace, Bear, and Shadow each received a medal and a steak dinner. Their handlers stood proudly beside them as the governor spoke. "These dogs represent the very best of law enforcement and the very best of our partnership with animals," the governor said. "They didn't wait for orders. They didn't hesitate. They responded to a child in need, and in doing so, they saved not just one life but potentially many more." Maya was at the ceremony, along with her mother. When it was Luna's turn to receive her medal, Maya walked up and hugged the German Shepherd around the neck. "Thank you for hearing me," Maya whispered into Luna's fur. "Thank you for not walking past." Luna licked Maya's face, her tail wagging, as if to say, "That's what we do. We listen. We protect. We never leave a pack member behind." The ceremony ended with a demonstration of the dog's abilities. They showed their tracking skills, their drug detection capabilities, their search and rescue training. But the most moving part came at the end, when Christine Parker explained what had been implemented as a result of Maya's case. "We've worked with schools across Arizona to teach children about the heel tap signal," Christine explained. "If a child is ever in danger, ever in a situation where they can't call for help verbally, they can use this signal. 2 taps, repeated, against any surface. And we're training all our K9 units to recognize this signal as a distress call. We're calling it Maya's signal." The audience applauded. Angela Torres stood up, tears streaming down her face. The 14 handlers and their dogs stood at attention. And Maya, small but no longer helpless, smiled. 1 year after the rescue, Maya was thriving. She'd started 3rd grade, made new friends, and was even taking a special class where kids learned how to train dogs. Angela had adopted a rescue dog, a gentle golden retriever named Buddy, who slept in Maya's room every night. Maya still had nightmares sometimes. She still got scared in parking lots. But she was healing, supported by therapy, her mother's love, and the knowledge that she had survived something terrible and come out stronger. Christine Parker and Luna visited Maya twice a year. Each visit, Maya would show Luna what she'd learned in dog training class. Luna would sit patiently while Maya practiced commands, always gentle, always protective. "She remembers you," Christine told Maya during one visit. "Dogs never forget someone they've rescued. You're part of her pack now." Maya hugged Luna tight. "She's part of mine too." Comment below if you believe dogs are heroes too. The case had far-reaching effects beyond Maya's personal recovery. The Maya's Signal program was adopted by school districts in 12 states. Children learned that if they were ever in danger and couldn't yell for help, they could tap twice against anything, a pattern that K-9 units were now trained to recognize. Law enforcement agencies strengthened their tracking of registered offenders. The failures that had allowed Frank Morrison to slip through the cracks were examined and corrected. New protocols were put in place to ensure better monitoring. And perhaps most importantly, there was a renewed appreciation for K-9 units in police work. Funding for K-9 training programs increased. More dogs were brought into law enforcement. And officers were reminded to trust their dogs' instincts, to pay attention when their partners reacted to something humans couldn't see or hear. Detective Patricia Warren, who had led the investigation, later spoke at a law enforcement conference about the case. "We humans like to think we're the smartest species, the top of the food chain," she told the audience of police officers. "But this case reminded me that sometimes, our four-legged partners know things we don't. They sense things we miss. And when a dog tells you something is wrong, you better listen." Those 14 dogs saved a little girl's life because they were paying attention to signals we couldn't detect. Let that be a lesson to all of us. Trust your K-9 partners. They might just save a life. Frank Morrison died in prison 2 years after his conviction. Attacked by other inmates who had learned what he'd done to children. No one mourned him. But Maya thrived. By the time she turned 12, she had started volunteering at an animal shelter, working especially with dogs that needed training. "I want to teach dogs to help people," Maya told a reporter who was doing a "Where Are They Now?" story 4 years after her rescue. "The way Luna helped me." "Do you still remember that day at the rest stop?" the reporter asked. "Every day," Maya said. "I remember being so scared. I remember thinking nobody would ever find me. And then I heard the barking. So many dogs, all barking at once. And I knew I was safe. What would you want people to know about what happened to you?" Maya thought for a moment. "I want people to know that even when things are really bad, even when you think nobody will help you, there's always hope. And sometimes, hope has 4 legs and a wagging tail." The 14 dogs eventually retired from active service, but their legacy lived on. Each year, new K-9 recruits learned about the Buckeye Rest Stop case as part of their training. They learned about listening to quiet signals, about trusting their instincts, about the partnership between dogs and handlers that can literally mean the difference between life and death. Luna retired at age 9, moving in full-time with Christine Parker and her family. She spent her retirement days playing with Christine's kids, napping in sunny spots, and occasionally visiting schools where she was always the star of the show. "This is Luna," Christine would tell the wide-eyed children. "She's a hero. She heard a little girl who needed help when no human could hear her. And she teaches us an important lesson: always listen. Always pay attention. Because you never know when someone might need you to notice they're in trouble." The children would pet Luna gently, and Luna would sit patiently, her dark eyes wise and kind. She had done her job. She had listened when it mattered. She had saved a life. And now, in retirement, she taught others to do the same. As for Maya, she grew up to become exactly what she dreamed of. She studied veterinary medicine and specialized in working with service dogs and K-9 units. At her college graduation, Christine Parker and Luna, now quite old but still alert, were in the audience. After the ceremony, Maya walked up to them. "I wouldn't be here without you," Maya said, kneeling down to hug Luna one more time. "I would have disappeared and nobody would have known what happened to me. But you listened. You heard me when nobody else could." Subscribe if this story reminded you why we need to protect and value every life. Luna licked Maya's face, her tail wagging slowly. In that moment, the connection between them was clear: rescuer and rescued, dog and human. Two lives forever connected by one moment when listening made all the difference. The story of Maya Torres and the 14 police dogs became more than just a news story. It became a reminder of the incredible capabilities of our animal partners, of the importance of teaching children safety strategies, and of never underestimating what might seem like small signals. In rest stops and schools and police stations across America, people tell Maya's story. They teach children the heel tap signal. They train dogs to listen for it. They remember that sometimes the quietest cry for help is the one that saves a life. And every time a child learns Maya's signal, every time a K9 unit runs a training drill on responding to distress patterns, every time someone pauses to listen more carefully because they remember this story, Maya's rescue happens again. Lives are protected. Children are safer, and the bond between humans and dogs grows stronger. That's the real legacy of that hot afternoon at the Buckeye Rest Stop. Not just one girl saved, but countless others who will be saved in the future because people learn to listen, because dogs learn to respond, and because we all remember that heroes come in all forms, sometimes with badges, sometimes with paws, but always with the courage to act when action is needed. Maya Torres is now 23 years old. She works with law enforcement agencies across the country, training K9 units and teaching children about safety. Luna passed away peacefully at age 14, surrounded by Christine's family and with Maya by her side. "Thank you," Maya whispered to Luna one last time. "Thank you for hearing me." And as Luna took her last breath, Maya could have sworn the old dog's tail wagged once more. As if to say, "You're welcome." That's what family does. We listen. We protect. We never let each other go. The 14 police dogs who saved Maya Torres taught us something powerful that day. They taught us that sometimes the most important sound in the world is the one we almost didn't hear. They taught us that help can come from unexpected places. And they taught us that every life is worth saving, no matter how quiet its call for help might be. If this story touched you, share it. Let others know about Maya's signal. Let children know that even in the darkest moments, there's always a way to be heard. And let every dog handler, every K9 unit, every person who works with animals know that their partnership matters. Because on one hot day in Arizona, that partnership saved a life. And it can do it again. Did you enjoy this story? Tell us in the comments which city you listened from. Let's meet in the comments. We are looking forward to your comments on this story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.